And welcome to this week's episode of the Mid-City Church Sermon Cast. My name is Fernie. I'm the pastor here at Mid-City Church, and I'm excited for you to join us as we continue in this series called Stepping into the Promised Land. And this week, we're going to talk about transitions, and transitions can be difficult, but they can also be really good at times. So, you ready? Because here we go. I was having a conversation earlier this week with a friend, and she asked me if I thought that if Mid-City would still be around in a couple of years. Now, first, let me say this. I know that this is a question that many of you have had and been wrestling with, and not just this friend of mine, especially if you're heavily involved in the life of Mid-City Church like many of you are. And as I have heard this question asked by so many of you, I thought that maybe it would be a good idea to make this a part of our conversation here on the Sermon Cast, especially to have a conversation around transitions of leadership and what to expect in the coming seasons. So, as I always do, let me begin by sharing a story. So I came to Baton Rouge in 2015. At the time, I had been working at a church in Chicago as a student pastor of the New Contemporary service, which I had been tasked with leading the efforts of launching that service. And I will say that our team had a ton of fun during those years of ministry. It was 3 years of ministry, and we learned a whole bunch about each other and how to work with other people. It was just a really great season of life. Now, perhaps the best thing about that experience was that we were given freedom by the church to experiment. We were given freedom to try new things and to be as creative as we wanted to. And we were able to do a bunch of things that turned out really great and some that didn't turn out so well. But we were given so much freedom that in the 3 years that I was there, I only received 3 complaints about the service total. One person was upset about one of the sermon topics. Another was upset that they missed the memo about needing musicians for the worship service. And a third was mad because the music was too loud, which you're not really in ministry, particularly in contemporary worship, unless somebody complains about how loud the sound is, right? Now, since those were the only real complaints that I received in 3 years, when I got here in 2015, I showed up full of confidence and self-assurance that I could lead this service that I had now been appointed to lead. But then my first Sunday came about. After my very first sermon, we had people leave the church. We had volunteers quit, and everyone started telling me about their frustrations with everything and everyone. Immediately, my confidence went away, and I started to question if I could even do this job. Now, looking back now, I've learned that those initial growing pains were just a natural part of transitions. Whenever someone new shows up, there are expectations that the new person should lead exactly like the old leader did. For others, there's expectations that the new person needs to be made aware of everything that's wrong because they can fix it. Then there are others who expect that the new person will bring with them no new changes. But let's be honest for a second. No two people have the exact same leadership styles. No one person has the ability to fix all the broken things because some of the things that are that one person may see as broken, another will see as perfectly fine. And more importantly, in order for a leader to lead effectively, there have to be some changes so that this leader can lead out of their strength. See, the bottom line is that transitions are hard, but in order for transitions to be effective, we have to prepare carefully and we have to expect different results. Now, the latter will be a conversation for next week. For now, I want us to focus on how to prepare carefully for transitions. So let's dive into scripture. Numbers chapter 27, verses 12 through 23 say this. The Lord said to Moses, "Go up this mountain, Abarim, and look at the land that I've given to the Israelites. You will see it and then join your ancestors, just as Aaron your brother has, because in the Zin desert, when the community confronted you, you rebelled against my command to show them my holiness by means of water. These are the waters of Meribah, of Kadesh, and the Zin desert." Now Moses spoke to the Lord, Let the Lord, the God of all living things, appoint someone over the community who will go out before them and return before them, someone who will lead them out and bring them back, so that the Lord's community won't be like sheep without their shepherd. The Lord said to Moses, "Take Joshua, Nun's son, a man who has a spirit, and lay your hand on him. Place him before Eleazar the priest and the entire community, and commission him before them. You will give him some of your power so that the entire Israelite community may obey. He will stand before Eleazar the priest, who will determine for him the decision by lot before the Lord. At his command, he and all the Israelites with him, the entire community, will go out, and at his command they will return." Moses did as the Lord commanded him. He took Joshua and placed him before Eleazar the priest and the entire community. He laid his hands on him and commissioned him as the Lord had spoken through Moses. So let me explain what's happening here. The Israelites have made it to the edge of the promised land, and they're finally ready to enter it. But before they do, there needs to be a leadership transition. So God tells Moses to go up the mountain to see the promised land along with all of its glory, and then Moses was going to die there and join his ancestors in heaven. Now, at the news of this, 3 things happen that I think are important for us to do as well, especially in the midst of transitions. So when Moses finds out that he won't get to enter the promised land with the people, and there's a transition about to happen, first, Moses speaks to God and asks God to appoint someone new over the people. Right, so his first action in the midst of a transition, he speaks to God. The second thing he does is he listens to what God has to say. In this case, it was to take Joshua as the next leader. The third thing Moses does is to affirm God's choice before the people so that they can now begin to put their trust in the next leader. Now, next week, we'll talk more about this, but by Moses doing these 3 things, right? So by speaking to God and asking for a new leader, by listening to what God has to say, and by appointing and affirming God's choice, Moses is able to pass the mantle on to Joshua, and Joshua is able to effectively lead the people into the promised land. Okay, so in order to connect this scripture story and these 3 things that Moses does with our current situation at Mid-City, Katie and I are going to talk about past transitions that have gone both right and wrong here at Mid-City Church and what we've learned from them. So once we do that, we're going to share with you a resource that can help you live these things into action and also help us as we continue to discern what's next in life at Mid-City Church. So thanks for joining us again, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
So do you want to go first this time since I went first last time?
Sure. So I have 2. The first one I would classify as a successful transition. And that was when our small group started being led by people that were not on staff. And so at first it was just like you and I leading small groups for the most part. And now we don't lead any of the small groups if we can help it. Because it works out a lot better for people to lead their own small groups, and people have grown through those in bigger ways than we could have imagined.
Can I say something to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I didn't think about it until just now. I don't know why. I think one of our dreams early on was to transition into a phase where we got to do deeper discipleship stuff, but the small group stuff was keeping us very overwhelmed. Now I get to lead a Disciple One class. You get to lead Financial Peace University. And because we've transitioned those things to lead, because we've trusted people to lead, we now get to do the deeper discipleship stuff, which is really cool. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's your bad one?
My one that's a not so successful transition has been all the times that we have kind of dived into doing children's ministry. And so far have done so, like, I wouldn't say unsuccessfully, but not as successful as it could have been, because I don't think we've been truly able to capture what the need is in our children's area, and who exactly we're kind of marketing to. So there's many stories to tell there, but that's something I don't think we've quite gotten yet.
Yeah.
The times we've tried to transition into that.
I would say we're still transitioning into that, and I haven't figured that out at all yet. Well, I think Mid-City will get there for sure, though.
Yeah.
So this is me being a little Pollyanna. I know there's a lot of negative ones, but I really want to focus on a positive one. So an important part of Mid-City for me was to create a core team. And we've had a core team since the very beginning, and core team itself has been through many transitions. When we first started, it was really about creating culture, So we did a lot of coaching stuff and a lot of development stuff. We even read books together, that kind of stuff. We slowly started transitioning to more business stuff until this year. We really fully transitioned into more of a leadership business committee that helps us make decisions. They oversee the budget, all that kind of stuff, which has been really cool because, and this is a successful transition in my mind. Last year, I noticed that we had kind of hit a little bit of a slump. Like we weren't bringing people in as much as we used to, and as I was thinking, what led to that? A big part of it was, one, I had a child and was out for a couple months, but also like we kind of reached our limit. Like we stretched ourselves as much as we could, and in allowing that leadership roles and the responsibilities to transition to others, I feel like so many people have stepped up lately. Like we have so many volunteers on Sunday mornings. It's become less stressful because so many people are willing to help out. A year ago, I know I said this last week, but like we've transitioned into our small groups has transitioned leadership, and they're really excited. And like, I just think about transitioning leadership away from our hands and into the hands of our lay people has been really cool to see. The one thing is, I wish we had done it sooner. I think it was very strategic the way we did it, but I wish we had transitioned leadership sooner. I will also say, I think this is the negative one. I think we have transitioned, I might get in trouble for saying this, through staffing changes, not so great at times.
Yeah.
I will give props to our staff who have been on our team. A lot of times when they have come on our team, we've kind of just like thrown them into the fire and they had to start going right away. And in retrospect, I wish those transitions had been smoother, that I had prepared better to help them in those transitions. Now, with that said, I think all of our worship leaders have done an incredible job and have led us to different places. And I love Jamie and what she's doing with ministry here at Mid-City Church. I just wish I had been there for them better during their transition into ministry. Yeah. Any other things you can think of?
No, I think those are the big ones.
Yeah. Well, here's what I want to end with. What I learned from transitioning our core team and the identity of core team was that, like I said, I wish I had done it a lot sooner because I think more people would have stepped up now. And the challenge I really want to leave people with is to not be afraid of transitioning in leadership. So at some point, some of our core team members are going to step off the team and new people are going to come in. That's a scary transition. At some point, some of our staff is going to change. That's a scary transition. At some point, people's lives situations are going to change. For instance, Lee moving out of town, who was in charge of our walking group. That was a scary transition. But what I've learned is that transitions can bring something beautiful in the end. They're difficult. They're sad. They're different. Like nobody leads the same. And so transitions are going to be different. And I think about how Joshua was about to lead in a very different way than Moses led. Right. But those transitions can lead into something really beautiful. And we'll talk about next week about the transition, what the transition led to. But here's my big push that I want to say. I think that transitions in leadership lead us closer into the promised land. And every transition that happens, not just from Moses to Joshua, but thereafter, leads them deeper into something more beautiful. And at times not so beautiful, but this transition in particular leads them into the promised land. And yes, transitions won't be perfect. Transitions will lead to things being done differently. And transitions, people won't always see things the same way. But, and this is the big thing that I want people to get from this, during transitions, we never know what God can do with the people that God is raising up. And so my prayer is that during these transitions and as we begin to make some final decisions that we may be open and willing to the transition, be flexible in the transition. And who knows, God can use whatever and whoever's next to lead us into a promised land that we didn't even imagine before.
Definitely.
Well, thank you for joining us, and I look forward to our next conversation.
I I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mid-City Church Sermoncast. If you would like to dive deeper into today's topic, visit midcity.church/sermoncast to find a home sheet that goes along with this message. On the home sheet, you will find scriptures, questions to wrestle with, and a challenge that goes along with this sermoncast. If this has been a helpful resource to help you grow in your faith, we want to invite you to support our ministry here at Mid-City Church by giving today. To give, text the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, to the number 225-307-0662. Thanks, and see you next week.